does solve limits, because there's limited to 5 topic areas, and it has to be either statutory and judicial restriction. It's not some sort of effect that would result in sort of a decrease in the executive power, which is what the affirmative, which is what would happen. Those are good salient debates because the negative is prepared and has the sort of sufficient research in order to have those debates. I'll do expanding limits. Yeah, the next argument is based on limits. Expanding limits means we sacrifice the depth with, even if we all these things be good ideas, we cut independent case things. Doing so sacrifices the depth that we could have on each debate, which makes those sort of debates productive. Otherwise, debates get stale and repetitive. Nuanced debate becomes impossible without predictable important statements like the resolution. We allow for topical discussion on the harms, but preserve clash is essential to use for what makes policy debate unique is an extended form of prep debate. A single resolution gets debated for an entire year, which enables greater depth and creativity in other forms. Stasis is key. Mutual agreed upon rules are essential for predictable research in class. Just because policy teams change their affirmative doesn't mean we sacrifice the limit, because it's still based on what the resolution has. It also still shows that there's some sort of innovation, and that means that our topic can't get stale at all. But not having a predictable point of stasis means we sacrifice any sort of depth that we could gain from any of the debates. The ground arguments. Our impacts on the 1NC aren't based on ground. It's about clash. The clash is argument testing. This is offense. Only it's not based on ground. So none of this applies. There are examples of surveillance good and the critique of D&G as providing ground. Or don't answer any, or don't solve any of our offense, because they aren't based on the sort of mechanism debates that we could have, such as like the circumvention example. Talking about those mechanism debates is key, because we're talking about how it's key to breaking down not only the complexity, but the ways in which those sort of forms interact with us. Our impact was based on clash. Clash is argument testing. This is offense. Only a predictable facilitates effective argument testing. The offense and predictable means you shouldn't weigh the case and vote negative presumption, because 1, we can't be expected to be well prepared and disproven in the run, or 2, the app never gets rigorously tested. The arguments are less refined, which means you should be skeptical of their truth value. That turns the case because it causes polarization. Studies show when our arguments are tested become more extreme, which puts them in a double bind. Either 1, the argument wasn't perfect to begin with, not rigorously testing means you corrupt the advocacy by making it more extreme, or 2, their arguments need to be refined, which means not subjecting to rigorous testing and the process of refinement is bad. Either way, it leaves the debate with suboptimal strategy that causes more good than harm. It's not infinitely regressive how much we're able to test. It's based on whether or not the negative should have been able to test in the first place. The difference between clash and crowd is whether or not the negative has a role within the debate space in order to test the affirmative. Their interpretation doesn't define a clear role. Switch side debates is good. They say they could reading on the negative doesn't solve, but it does, because they've read a critical reading of the resolution and why it's bad. If they read it both in the affirmative, it causes confirmation bias. Switch side is key to deliberation, which is able to overcome different sort of other argument. Debating a limited controversial topic fosters deliberation skills. It's standardized thinking from both sides, which is key to sort of. Which is key to imagining arguments from interactions with other forms of arguments. It causes people to think from the other side, which leads to better advocacy skills, because they are well prepared to answer their arguments from the other side. Education within another round doesn't solve, because they have made the debate key warrant, which means that we lose on any sort of net increase in the specific educational related resolution that we could have. Our interpretation doesn't reify oppression if we prove that the resolution is based on a decrease, which means that we don't result in a net investment in the state, which reifies that sort of oppression. Debate is a game with Gordy gave the examples of time limits and speech times and different role positions means that there's competitive incentives within debate, which ensures it is a game. Fairness has to be an impact, because fairness has to be an impact. Debates are won by inches, not miles, and increasing the scope of potential affirmatives could only benefit the AF. Not being tied to the topic means to get the part of the lit base they want to defend and leaves you with neck with concessionary ground. You win soccer, you wouldn't have one team have a slightly smaller goal, and the debate is, if we win the debaters game, the AF model skews it in their favor. Justifying an unfair game means that debaters quit numerous lost programs prove that there's impact to not justifying a fair game. There's not a masking dissent, because the ballot can only make decisions regarding procedural fairness. Structural fairness is outside inevitable. There is the next dissent fairness doesn't justify status quo violence. If anything, unfair games would justify that, or preserving unfairness is a reason that all those those impacts happen. It's not infinitely regressive because it's simply a rule of debate, and has to be an impact by itself, even if we don't win in education. I've already proven why our education, or the topic education, is good. Their extra forms of education have already been impacted by the race to the margins.
Okay, awesome. You ready?
Yeah.
So you say that we have, or you impact turn KVK debate. Why is this a good thing?
No, that just shows as an example. There's no limits within those sort of debates, and it just causes a race to the margin.
Okay, so is KVK debate good or bad? Because this is like an important dissent.
We would say if it's not read in the literature, or if it's not based
If it
on
doesn't,
the
if it doesn't have a plan text, is it bad?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not
cool.
based on-
We're gonna impact turn that.
I just-
You say that, first of all, you say that we justify infinite mechanisms. You did not read a definition to specify certain form, or the surveillance part of the topic. Why don't you justify hundreds more AFs? Second question, why doesn't your broad definition justify multiple AFs under each 5 planks of the topic?
Okay, so first of all, we have defined the way restrictions would happen, either by statutory mechanisms or judicial mechanisms. That is the only way, or the only definition that's provided in order to do that.
You
So
didn't-
we don't disagree with you on definition of surveillance or stuff like that, which is why we did not read a definition of it. Do we have like the same
I mean,
definition?
if that's true, then I don't know why your interpretation doesn't link back to your limits.
Okay, so the second part of your thing is that we don't massively explode limits compared to the affirmative, because it's still based on a predictable when it states the resolution.
I mean,
defined
we're literally
5
just a
areas.
refusal of like surveillance. Why is that like not under your interpretation then?
Because there's no specific mechanism to decrease the executive authority.
Okay, you
on
say we
surveillance.
violate stasis. You get surveillance good. You get existing surveillance policy good. New approach is good, and all of your executive power offense. We
Yeah.
also said you could read the terror dissad. I'm trying to like ask like what part of stasis don't we solve?
You don't solve the point of stasis, it's based on the mechanism debate that we could have. Like, for example, if you got rid of bulk into the central collection, where is it collected? How is it collected? If we got rid of it, how could government fill in? Those are all, like, all sort of questions that could be answered. And so just running those arguments doesn't solve that sort of
So you
mechanism debate that we
say
need.
you say that your, or what was your, you said that what did you say in response to educate? I just like was confused on your education.
Yeah,
Just,
so
like, very,
education was, first of all, that fairness was an impact, but even if it's an internal link,
well, I'm not talking about.
topic education that's based on the mechanism debates that I just explained is good. It's key to breaking down the
That's fine.
complexity.
So it's just the deliberation stuff. You say we sacrifice depth. Why isn't certain KVK debates like good for depth?
Because, okay.
Actually, I'm sorry. I have a better question. You say that we can't refine our affirmative. We should have lost a debate to Cornell LT, and we severely restructure our 1AC because of it. Why isn't that refining our strategy?
What? I don't know what you mean.
Okay, that's fine.
I am just sending the things. The cards. Okay. There's that. The order is the K and then case.
You said it's the case and then K.
K and then case.
K and then case. Okay, my bad.
Okay, is there a doc?
There are just like cards in the email chain that I sent.
Okay, awesome.
At least I believe I can send.
Can you just signpost when you're gonna get to them?
Get to the cards?
Yeah, just so we know.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like it should be.
Well, it'll be obvious. It's
I
fine.
mean, it's gonna be like a card text.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Probably
that's fine.
Or I'll say like an author tag thing. I don't know. Hopefully this is good. Okay. We good?
Yeah.
Can you hang on 1 second? I'm sorry, you don't have the doc yet.
Sure.
Some reason. Computer's just being.
It's in
It's just in the chain. It's like 3 cards.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, go ahead.
This debate should be about competing methods for actualizing agency against executive authority that outperforms agency unresponsive in, and by the 1AC keeping calm and carrying on repeat seemingly conservative strategies that open new forms of non-powerful agency. That's before the AF commits to an anti-normative ethos that invests political agency within a politics of refusal. This is anti-normative in two aspects. First, anti-institutionalism defies the steep or steep in the rhetoric of complacency. This refusal to speculate manifests in a cruel attachment to institutionalization, disavowing institutional power, actively prohibits conversations about agency. That's the Whiteman evidence. This form of rule-making only confers a grandized agency that those who try to detach from norms, maybe they do escape the logic of normalization. That's the jawless evidence. The second is a specter of the outsider. The agency is always a privilege afforded to students on the periphery and always defined against a provisionally specified norms of like debate or institutionalism. That's the Curry evidence. Their repetition of they are anti-normative proves the link, which means there's a super low threshold on answering the perm, which I will do now. No permutation of the F chose their method are responsible for it. They should have to defend all of it, that it wasn't, not more. Their model incentivizes Fs that minimize link and maximize perm ground. Either it still links or it suffers, which is a voting issue because it denies a stable link current and meets our strategy. It obscures, second, it obscures and ignores the transformational potential of the alternative. The links are all dissets to the permutation. They, in that way, any of their charts, our strategy just proves the critical potentiality of the F. That's the co-option argument. They think they're radical, but it's a route to reassert that, but we're critical misses the point. They have to win that psychological investment in anti-normative agency is a good to win this argument. They can't turn our focus like Whiteman. 16. The discourse of the university is being reworked. Rehabilitative rhetorics are about penetration and non-complicity as neoliberalism became the name of changes in the university. The essay does not offer a new thesis about institutionalism. Its objective study is the point effect that accompanies investment in the university-specific site for social change. The impact level stuff, yeah, I'm gonna group they say the complacency TA and then also the like impact turning the F, or like the alt is the squo, but I'm gonna answer that stuff now. Our strategy is similar to the squo. Keeping calm and carrying on does acknowledge that fixtures exist now and against the university now. The strategies look similar in that they think the distinction is unical, but that is exactly the point. The F insists on radicality, but recoils when confronted by it because the alt is a form of radicality that they are unable to recognize, which links back to all of our impacts. The impacts take out solvency and turns the case the disengagement from the state causes the right to fill in with alternatives of our own that makes capitalism inevitable. That's the Rudy evidence, and they play right into the hands of capitalism because capitalism despises the types of limits and thrives on the absence of constraints, the exact things that they are criticizing, which yeah, that was the Rudy evidence. This takes out the critical potential of the anti-normative thought, calcifies into ritualistic rejection. Rudy 16 theory has been dismissive of how it's aligned with ideological complacence, being suspicious of propensity of ideas to congeal into the rigid configuration that can reject everything. This produces a new habit. The cultural critical theory's capacity to remain critical to attitudes become so predictable in theory that first it's tendency to lead from critique to autonomous and sovereign, subject to the notion that all effort is rejected for secondary should be discouraged. The second is the idea that the radical anti-normativity constitutes an ethical ethical sense. Its claim is difficult to contest, yet it underestimates the degree to which normative judgments hover in the background of anti-normative theses. There is a difference between theorizing alternatives and theorizing that sounds like empty rhetoric about visions entirely unlivable hyperbolic accounts of subjectivity pulverizes and radical anti-normativity veer toward the latter. The theory calcifies as semiotic rituals when it starts to say exactly what one would expect it to, and they stabilize normativity. Wakeman in lesson 15, anti-normative tends to project stability and immobility. Anti-normativity, they generate much of the political tyranny they claim to belong to regimes of normativity. There's something about the pull of anti-normativity, even most rigorous theoretical readings can find itself sponsoring a politics of oppositionalism. Anti-normative arguments immobilize the activity of norms. These movements are analytic and political capabilities have been significantly distinguished. The marginal risk of the F stuff, the conceded links means are all cuts against the F solvency, which means and they're all differential, which means there's no way that they're able to actually solve capitalism. It doesn't all their like theory of power stuff does not matter because it's about the like method for addressing the ways that we like capitalism and their focus on radicality is bad. They say the F cells the links disprove that they think that they're radical and new, but their perspective just recreates the same problems that have not solved neoliberalism in the past, which is proven by their example. It did not get rid of all of neoliberalism. The case debate. I'm extending the Halberstam evidence, and we have to engage through political institutions. That's the only way that we're able to do things like challenging Trump and their critiques of the claim to that Trump is exceptional and stuff like that is directly disproven by this claim of their author, or that we should be explicitly rejecting of Trump. The Gray evidence, it's not a rejection, or they aren't a rejection of the radical left. They're ideal that they are some sort of novel solution that is a rejection of these types of things, ignores the historical continuity that exists throughout these things. That's the Gray evidence. Their criticisms of the false hope and other stuff like that is exactly the point of the links to the critique, that it is a way of rejecting the types of discourse that are actually radical but not seen as such. They're focused more on the ways that they can be radical, or that they think of radicality instead of the ways that they actually are. Their construction of the resolution as constructed about Trump attaches new things to it so that they're able to propose their critiques of it, which is exactly what the Cray is critiquing, that they recreate the types of dominant structures that they center the resolution around Trump, when there's nothing in that is about the words of it. That recreates the type of normative, anti-normative dichotomy that the critique is criticizing.
Watch out for the stand, it's like close to fall. Sorry, I just didn't want your computer to fall.
Oh, I don't know, fine.
Yeah. Alright, we had,
We used like 2:30.
we used 2:30, so we have 7. Is that right?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm horrible at math. I failed stats last semester, so
I'm sorry.
it's okay. Retaking it this semester, so we'll see. Alright, start, brother.